As a product manager, do you ever feel like you're in a vortex and just building features after features and getting lost on the true purpose? And as a product leader, are you wondering, why are these features not even moving the needles? Or do I have a book for you? Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Teresa and I'm a product director based in Melbourne, Australia. And on this channel, we explore strategies and tools that keep inspiring us to keep growing in our product career. In today's video, I will share my top 5 key takeaway from the book Escaping the Build Trap by Melissa Perry. Before we jump in, a bit about Melissa. She's a strategic advisor, author, and board member that has worked with leaders at Fortune 500 companies and SaaS scale-ups to enable growth through building impactful product strategies and organizations. She's the CEO and founder of the Product Institute, which offers an e-learning for product people of all levels through online courses, and has her own podcast called Product Thinking. I'll share some of those details in the description below. Let's jump into the first key takeaway. What is a build trap? It's when an organization becomes stuck measuring their success by outputs rather than outcomes. It's when they focus more on shipping and developing features rather than the actual value those things produce. Now, everything revolves around the value exchange system. Company ends up in a build trap when they misunderstand the value. Instead of associating value with the outcome they want to create for their business and customer, they measure value by number of things that they produce. To determine the basic true value, there are two sides. One side are the customer and users who have problems, wants, and needs. On the other side is the business that creates products or services to resolve those problems and fulfill those wants and needs. Now, the customer only realize value when these problems are resolved and these wants and needs are fulfilled. Then and only then do they provide value back to the business. Now, value for the business perspective is pretty straightforward. It's something that can fuel your business with money, data, knowledge, capital, etc. Every feature you build, any initiative you take as a company should result in some outcome that is tied back to the business value. Now, when companies do not understand their customers or user problems, well, they cannot possibly define value for them. Instead of doing the work to learn this information about the customers, they create a proxy that is easy to measure. Value becomes the quantity of features that are delivered, and as a result, the number of features shipped becomes that primary metric of success. Key takeaway number 2. Product development is full of uncertainty, and it's important to separate out the facts from the things that we need to learn. Melissa uses this 2x2 matrix to explore the knowns and unknowns of situations. So when kicking off an initiative, it's best to begin by identifying what are the no-knowns of the situation. These are facts that you gather from data or critical requirements from customers. Now, not all perceived requirements are necessary, but some of them are. These could be mandated by the government regulators, or they could just be basic needs that are required to do the job. Now, the known unknowns are clarified enough that you know which questions to ask. They are assumptions that you want to test, data points that you want to investigate, or problems that you can identify and explore. You can use discovery methods and experimentation to clarify these, turn them into facts, and build to satisfy those facts. Now, the unknown knowns are those moments when you say, hey, I feel like this is the right thing to do. This is the intuition from years of experience. Although we should all listen to our intuition, you should also be cautious because this is often where bias thrives. It's imperative to check and experiment to see whether your intuition is right. Now, the unknown unknowns are just things that you just don't know. You don't know enough to ask the right questions or identify the knowledge gaps. These are the moments of surprise that needs to be discovered. Now, key takeaway number 3, product management is a career. It's not just a role that you play on the team. The product manager deeply understands the business and the customer to identify the right opportunities to produce value. They are responsible for synthesizing multiple pieces of data, including user analytics, customers, feedback, market research, and stakeholder opinions, and then determining which direction the team should move. They keep the team focused on why are we building this product, and what are the outcome it will produce. They're not the mini CEOs because they don't have the sole authority over many things like firing people, changing up the team, or change the company direction. Instead, they need to rely on influencing people to actually move in a central direction. They're not waiters who are order takers. Product managers are meant to talk to stakeholders and customers and the right intention to learn and discover problems rather than what they want. They're not just project managers, although there is a bit of project management is needed to execute, but are not responsible for when will this project be completed. Instead, they're responsible for why. Why are you building this? How does it deliver value to customers? And how does it help to meet the end goal of the business? Answering the why is very different than answering when. It requires a strategic mindset that understands the customer, business, market, and organization. This is a critical skill set for a great product manager. As a product manager, your role and responsibilities will change depending on your context, the stage of your product, or your leadership position in the organization. Now, without Scrum teams or with a smaller team, you might be doing more strategy and validation work for a product that has not been defined yet. With the Scrum team, you might be more focused on execution of solutions. As a manager of product managers, you might be leading strategy for a larger part of the product and coaching your teams to discover and execute well. The next key takeaway is that good strategy isn't a detailed plan. It's a framework that helps you make decisions. But those companies tend to fail due to 3 key gaps between outcomes, plans, and actions. Gap number 1 is the knowledge gap. It's the difference between what management would like to know and what the company actually knows. Organizations try to fill its gap by providing and demanding more detailed information. Instead, seeking more detailed information, upper management should be limiting its direction to define the communication, the strategic intent, or the goals of the business. The strategic intent combines to communicate where the company is heading and what it desires to achieve when it gets there. The strategic intent points the team towards the outcome the business wants to achieve. Next is the alignment gap. Difference between what people do and what management wants them to do, which is to achieve the business goals. Now, organizations try to fill this gap by providing more detailed instructions, whereas instead they should just allow each level within the company to define how it will achieve the intent of the next level up. Instead of setting down mandates, organizations instead should turn to aligning every level of the company around the why, and should give the next layer the opportunity to figure out how and report back. Now, when leadership is not aligned to the top, the issues trickled all the way down to the teams. The lack of meaning and focus spreads, and at the end of the year, the company will look at their target goals and ask what happened. Lack of leadership alignment is by far the biggest issue standing in the way of successful product management. And lastly, the effects gap is the difference between what we expect our actions to achieve and what actually happens. When organizations do not see the results they want, they try to fill this gap by putting more controls in place. However, this is the worst thing you could do in this scenario. Giving individuals and teams the freedom to adjust their action so that they are in line with their goals is what will truly allow them to achieve the results. And finally, the last key takeaway is using a systematic way to build better products and get out of the trap. Now, strategy is about taking the organization from where you are and reaching the vision. And there are 3 critical parts to this. First is the strategy creation, is figuring out which direction the company should act upon and developing the framework in which people make decisions. Strategy deployment, which is the act of communicating and aligning narratives of interconnected stories throughout the organization that explains the objective and outcomes, tailored to a specific time frame. And lastly, the execution process to achieve the outcome. Now, Melissa has developed the product kata, which is a process by where you uncover the right solutions to build. It's a systematic way that teaches product managers to approach building products from a problem solutioning standpoint. Now, this process helps product people to incredibly impactful habits. Doing it over and over again to ingrain the process into your brain, this pattern will eventually become second nature. So how does this work? The first task is to get to the product initiative. To do this, you need to understand the strategic intent, then evaluate the current state of that strategic intent in relation to where your product can help and determine what problems you can solve to further that strategic intent. Then you need to set up team goals and how success will be measured of the options, which are the solutions. Although it can take 6 months or longer to reach the product initiative goal, the team goal should be something that can measure after every release, which gives the team feedback that the solution is working the way they want. Once these goals are being set, then we begin walking through the product kata and ask ourselves the following. What is the goal? Where are we in relation to the goal? What is the biggest problem or obstacle standing in the way of me in reaching that goal? How do I try to solve that problem? What do I expect to happen next, which is the hypothesis? What actually happens? What did we learn? Now, by answering questions 1 through to 4 to figure out how to plan the next move as a team. Then reflect on the work in questions 4 to 6 and determine whether to go back to the beginning of the next round. Now, these questions will take you through different execution phases. There is the problem exploration phase. They can be many techniques such as user research, observation and surveys, and customer feedback that you can harness to better explore the problem from a user standpoint. Now, the main point here is to start talking to customers regularly. Then we have the solution exploration phase, where it's all about experimentation, building to learn. It allows you to understand your customers better and to prove whether there is value in solving a problem. Experiments should not be designed to last for a long time. By nature, they are meant to prove whether a hypothesis is true or false. In software, we want to do this as quickly as possible. This means you will eventually be scraping whatever you built and figuring out how to make it sustainable and scalable, if it does succeed. Where you actually don't need to experiment robustly, this is if you know the problem and the solution, then it's time to implement. There is no need for upfront testing, but you should still be measuring the outcome. And lastly, solution optimization phase, which can be shifting your product visions based on your learning, getting to that version 1 set of priorities, and understanding the real definition of done. In Agile development, we know that it's a set of checklists of valuable activities required to produce a software. And when the team finishes building features required to ship the product, then they're done. However, this is great from a concept of getting the team's progress to be finished what it needs. But done here actually means developing and iterating on the feature only when it has reached this goal. Now, it's important to understand each of these execution phases so that you are doing just enough to get to the goal. One of the biggest mistakes in product management is team rushing to apply a tool or practice at the wrong stage. Many times they're experimenting unnecessarily when the problem is not yet known or when there is already a good idea about the solution. Don't spend your time over-designing and creating a unique and innovative solution for things that are not core of your product's value proposition. If someone has already solved that problem with best practice, learn from that. Implement their solution. Gather data to determine if it's successful in your situation and then iterate. Reserve your time and energy for things that will make or break your value proposition. Now, a good example is a checkout page on an e-commerce website. If you don't want to get into the business of being a checkout service for e-commerce companies, then don't spend all your time here. There's a lot of experimentation that has already been happening around this particular solution, and you can harness that. Now, when the problem that you are solving is core to your value proposition, take a step back and don't rush into the first solution. Use your unique context to set apart from competitors. Experiment with few solutions ideas before committing to one. No matter where you are building a new feature or optimizing one, the process is the same. Problem exploration might be shorter time frame if it's around a smaller feature than a new product. The same goes for solution experimentation. They might not be as robust, but no matter what, you should always be diagnosing the problem and trying to understand how to solve it. This is how you build with intent and get out of the build trap. But in addition to having a solid process and strategy, you need a company that supports good product management efforts. The team needs to be orientated around outcomes, and then the leadership team needs to give you space to figure out how to achieve those outcomes. These are the marks of a product-led company. Process and framework get you only so far on your way to success, but culture, policies, and structures are the thing that really sets a company apart to thrive in product management. If you find this video helpful or inspiring, please hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Also, if you would like to share some of your key takeaway from this book, please share in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.